What's up, everyone? Scotty from Chernobyl Studios. Today, we are going to look at the 1111 amp from Otto Audio. Now, these guys sent a license to me for me to make a video for you guys. However, they have not seen this video, so all the opinions about this amp are my own. And let's dive into this. It's not going to be a shock, probably, if you haven't heard of the 1111 yet. It's kind of an up-and-coming amp. And this is a really unique amp because it's not built to emulate a certain piece of hardware. It seems to really just be an amp that allows you to come up with some brutal, crushing tones and to really help you get your own type of sound. So I have created a demo. Let's check out the demo and then let's talk a bit more about this amp sim. All right, so that's what it sounds like in the context of a mix. Pretty brutal, pretty heavy. We will go over in just a second about what I did in the mix and stuff like that. A couple of unique things that I had to do. But let's talk about the amp sim first here. So let me just load this one up here. So here we are, right on default settings, and it sounds like this. So very heavy, very brutal. I will say straight away that the noise gate on this works quite well. I am playing through my Flying V, which has been upgraded to Seymour Duncan Invaders. I took Carl Sanders' advice and had it directly mounted to the input jack. So there's no volume knob, so it's always on. So let's just take the monitoring off here. So the gate is great, all good to go. Even on the default, this thing sounds pretty brutal. Now, there is a feature about this amp that makes it a lot of fun to play. Now, you'll notice that I have just one instance of this here, and I have one track. And we have a couple of different routing options. And maybe looking at this going, mono stereo, what's that? Well, there's an interesting thing going on with this plugin. So if we're in mono, sounds like that. Sounds pretty much what you would expect. And you've heard me say in Guitar Tone Mastery in previous videos that, to get a really good idea of what the amp sim could sound like, you typically want to double track it, right? And then run it through stereo processing. But the reason why this amp is so fun to play is that you can basically simulate a double track sound right with one track. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm playing in drop A there. It sounds absolutely brutal, very heavy. Now, I don't know what is being used to do this effect. It might be the Haas effect, or just might be some delay, or it really doesn't matter to me. It sounds really cool, and it's a lot of fun to play, through your headphones and through your monitors. And that's a great thing. That big expansive sound sounds awesome. Now, this amp sim also is a little bit different because it's not I wouldn't really recommend to use it in the way that you would use other amp simulators, where it's very linear. You do the cab, etc., etc. This one is you really want to use your ears. Now, there are a lot of things you can do with the amp sim. Of course, we see the back plate here. You just click in the middle of the graphic. We can change the mod style. We can change how much gain we're putting into there. We can adjust. We can adjust the gate. We have power tube selections. We can also change the bias, sag, and feedback, etc., amplitude, resonance. But this really isn't the coolest aspect of the amp sim, in my particular opinion. The really cool aspect comes with the amount of different layers and possibilities you have with all the different sounds. For example, let me show you. Here is the preset menu. There are a truck ton of presets, just an absolute freaking truck ton. Now you have the main preset here. So if we go to auto audio, we have the default preset, but we also have different variations on the said preset. So like I said, there are a ton of presets, and normally I don't give a crap about presets because I know what I want to do. If I open up an angle amp, for example, I know what I want to do. So I just do that. This one I would absolutely recommend that you go through some of the presets because you're going to get a great understanding of the varying degrees of tone palettes that you have to play with here. And that's before, we talk about the impedance curves and then all the different cabs that you can choose here. And of course the tone stack. But the selling point of this particular amp sim is that you can create a unique sound. Now, you guys know I'm kind of a big fan of the HM2 sound, the grind sign, all that stuff. You can do that here in this plugin as well. So here's the default sound. Let's go ahead and check out the HM2 preset. Let's just go with the first HM2 preset, heavier M2. That sounds like HM2. And we have more variations of the heavier M2 preset. So we can just go right down the line here. So I'll just hit the chord. Sounds amazing. Well, that's not all. We have heavier M2 Mark II. And then we have, again, all of the same different variations on this particular preset are all here as well. So you have a ton of different sound options to go through here. And I really enjoy this because, like my friend Glenn Fricker has said, and he is totally correct, the PB into the Mesa 30 with the SM57 is fucking boring. Everyone's done it. It's been done. It's time to find something new. And I think the 1111 here does that in spades, where there are so many different tonal options to go through that you really can't place your finger on. Like you can't, okay, the HM2, sure, we can go, yep, that sounds Swedish. But if we just go to these presets, there's so many different sounds. And I really, really enjoyed this. And I actually spent a long time just going through these going, oh, that sounds cool, that sounds cool. Oh, nothing could be heavier than that. Well, that sounds cool. And I really enjoyed that aspect of it. It doesn't happen very often where I open up an amp simulator and go, whoa, all right, that's cool. And that's not even, like I said, that's not even the end of it. So let's say we find one that we really liked. I think I liked this one. Yeah, so I kind of like this one. Has a bit of a scoop sound, has the high end presence and treble that you guys know me for. But we can not sculpt it, we can sculpt it even further with the impulse curves. Or excuse me, the impedance curves. Now, if you click the O here, that menu comes up, and you could click like this if you wanted. But don't do that. You have arrows here where you can cycle through them. And so you can play a DI, or you can just hit a string. So consequently, I do like impedance number 2, but in 4 is pretty good too. Let's go with 3. Not only that, we have the cabs. So the cabs, same thing. You click here, oops, on the OA, you can bring all the cabinets. 22 cabinets. Again, I wouldn't really recommend to click like this. I would just recommend to cycle through them. Find the one that you like. So cabinet 8's pretty good. And cabinet 11's pretty good. For my ears, okay? So it's not the exact process that I always use for dialing in amps, and that's kind of a good thing, you know, because it's okay for things to be different, and this sounds different, and it's cool. Now, obviously, from here you can take the tone stack, which I will do. And that looks pretty good. And I really like that. So I'm quite impressed with that. And really, it's a ton of fun to play. If you just want to jump on the computer or your laptop and have a big sound, so you can be inspired of how brutal everything sounds, this is a great plugin. And I'm not really aware, and I could be wrong, so I'm sure if I am, you can correct me in the comments, of any other plugin where you can just have one guitar play into the interface and it simulates a left-right. Really cool, really enjoy that. Now, let's talk about recording this thing, because there's a bit of a difference, okay? Now, I don't know if you could hear that when I was playing, but for me, to my ear, there's a bit of fizziness. Now, this is not inherently bad. You know, there are a lot of genres and guitar tones where fizziness is good. For me, I tend to shy away from fizziness in the tone. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and let me show you what I did in my little demonstration here to help calm down the fizziness. So, go to my guitar chain. So this is what I used, the Growl Otto, and sort of similar settings actually, just a bit more bass, but whatever. Now here, when you're doing two tracks, obviously you want to go into stereo routing. You don't need the plugin to simulate a left-right channel. You're passing a left-right into the plugin, so that makes total sense. Turn the snarl down. Really, I used KT88s here. Really, literally did nothing else. All the sound here was from me finding the impedance curves and the cabs that I liked, and then tweaking the tone stack a little bit. Now, when I recorded this originally, I knew I could hear the high-end fizz. And I keep saying this over and over. Again, let me reiterate. It's not bad to have fizz. Just me personally, okay? I don't particularly like it, but it doesn't mean the amp simulator is bad, okay? Now, I took action to sort of fix it. Now, so what that ended up actually being was a pretty decisive cut here in the high end. And let me show you what that sounds like. So I will turn the EQ off. You'll hear the tone. So let me solo that in case you weren't able to hear it within the context of the mix. And up here you can just hear that going on, all right? And let me turn the EQ on. So for me, 6K and above is just white noise. I don't want to have it. I've discussed this with other amp simulators in the past. And yeah, I just sort of take care of it as much as I can. Now, the interesting thing about that is when you kind of nuke out the white noise, you sort of start getting hyper-focused on this area of the guitar where it's also harsh in a different way. Okay, so I took care of some resonances that were happening. right? So I cleaned it up quite a bit. Obviously, we still have some harshness going on. So I decided that I'm going to use a multi-band. Two reasons. Because we're pretty scooped here and don't have a lot of information happening down here. I was like, let's just go with the multi-band. So the multi-band is taking care of the Andy Sneap trick, which is world-renowned. But you can also use a multi-band to help take care and tame upper frequencies of a guitar tone. Not really change the character of the guitar tone, but it helps mute the upper harsh frequencies a little bit. Let me show you what I mean. So when I turn the multiband off, what you're listening for is a little bit of a type of a sound. And when I turn the multiband on, it's still there, but I'm just turning it down a little bit. And it's working in a dynamic fashion where it just, that whole range is getting turned down a little bit. Not a lot, okay? Because remember, as much as we don't want to have all this extra noise and stuff like that in the guitar tone, it actually is this particular aggressive character in metal guitars that gives it that flavor, that helps it cut through the mix, that helps it sound exciting, that helps it sound aggressive. So if we mute this entire character region of the guitar, we're actually going to have a guitar tone that just sounds like it's under a pillow, it's underwater, it's not exciting, it's really dark. It just won't be interesting. So it's a fine line. It's a fine line of how much you want to take out and leave in. And I would recommend doing stuff like this in the context of the mix, so that if you pull out too much, your guitar will disappear and you'll understand, oh, that was too much. So let me bring it back in a little bit. And again, when you're doing it in the context of the mix, these things that you're hyper focused on when you're just listening to the guitar, just solo, they sort of get buried a little bit. You got the frequency masking thing happening, and you won't hear it as much. Right, you got the bass clanking away, you got the drums going on, but you can already tell that the guitar sounds a bit darker, and it sounds like it's being pushed back into the mix a little bit. Well, that's how we bring in the handy-dandy API. And this is the Soft Tube American Class A that I'm trying out. And all I'm doing is my classic bump. It's 10K plus 2 dB, and I decided to do some compression. I don't know why. Typically, I never compress guitars. You really don't have to. But I was just like, whatever, it's in the plugin, cool. So just, attack around 11 or so. Just really minor compression, nothing serious. But what you can hear is that little small EQ bump that happens right here. We're sort of lifting the high-end information back up of the guitar tone. Now, you can do this because if you've done everything or you've taken care of the problem spots, you can lift up the good information of the high-end that you want to have just enough, like I said, not too much, so that you sort of lift the guitar back into the mix. Here we are at 0. And it's just that tiny little bump that you want to do. Anything more would be too much and would start becoming painful. And this is pretty much one of my things that I always do. This is really how I get my sound, obviously. So that's how I do that. Now, we still have some digital harshness going on, and we're going to solve that with Soothe. Now, Soothe, probably one of the plugins that if you are going to do a lot of recording and mixing with amp simulators, or even just anything, Soothe is probably a plugin that you're going to want to invest in, because it's not a multi-band per se, it's not a dynamic EQ per se, although it does both things. I'm not a technological wizard. All I know is that Soothe makes things not hurt. And what I'm going to do with Soothe here is I'm going to take the last little bit of digital harshness. As you can see here, I'm just using the preset called E-Guitar Harsh, and I'm just going to very, very slightly reduce it. Now, once again, this is a move that you want to do in the context of the full mix. What you want is that the guitar, again, comes back into the mix just enough where it's there. Okay, we don't want to undo everything we've just done with the processing, with the multiband and the EQ and stuff like that. So let me show you. It's very slight, and just that slight amount helps the guitar keep the aggressiveness. Sounds heavy. It has that upper presence sound that I like, but it's not painful and sounds pretty damn cool, especially in the mix. You can even hear it in the mix a little bit where you still had a bit of that happening in the guitar tone, but we're just doing a little small reduction here with smooth and it goes away and it's awesome. So Soothe 2, pretty amazing plugin for dealing with electronic digital guitars. So that's what I did for processing. The main thing that I, again, just want to iterate for me personally, because I'm very particular about how I want my high end presence to sound, is that this is a pretty steep cut that I had to make. It's genre, taste, palette specific, whatever you want to do. Just showing you how I did it to get the sound that I like. All right, so that is the 1111 from Otto Audio. Does it suck? Absolutely not. It's a really interesting, unique plugin, I should say amp simulator, where it has a lot of different tonal palettes and variations. It doesn't sound like any one thing, which I think is a good thing right now, since you really should be trying to find your own unique brand and sound. Once again, I want to thank Otto Audio for sending a license to me to check out this amp sim to make a video for our guys. And once again, they have not seen the video, so you're watching it for the first time with them right now. And by the time this video goes out, it should be, I think it's like a couple weeks away from Christmas. If I remember correctly, they have a Christmas special going on their website, which I believe is 50% off. I don't get any kickbacks for that. I get no money for that. I'm just letting you guys know that if you're looking for a unique amp simulator, that this might be something you want to check out. All right. Link down in the description if you want to check it out. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. I will see you in the next one. Have a good one.